I was very excited when Netflix released season 4 of The Crown last week. With the first episode starting with the events of 1979, I found myself remembering the histories of this flamboyant fellow Gemini who was a part of several remarkable events of the 20th century. The spicy histories of this person practically started when he was born and followed him until his death. He had controversies for breakfast and gossips for dinner, and no shortage of drama in between. It is inconceivable that he could have had it any other way, and is perhaps more eligible to have the title of Masala before his name than anyone else in recent history. Welcome to Masala History. In this episode, we will take a whirlwind trip of the 20th century following the animated saga of a fascinating British Imperialist, Louis Francis Albert Victor Nicholas Mountbatten, the first Earl Mountbatten of Burma. For those hoping for some juicy gossips, let me disappoint you up front. I will not be discussing Lady Edwina. The topic needs its own podcast. But believe me, Mountbatten's story of amusing incidents has a lot more outside of Edwina's stories too. We will take a look at the various spices that, when brought together, form this unique gourmet, the spice guy called Masala Mountbatten. So let's get on our time machine, set the dial to June 1900 and start our cooking recipe at the Windsor kitchen. Our first ingredient, 1 tablespoon of name spice. What is in a name? Our today's hero, Lord Mountbatten, was born as Louis Battenberg as a great-grandson to Queen Victoria. Both his nearest maternal and paternal sides were filled with queens, princesses, duchesses, and every other royal title holders from across Western Europe, from Sweden to Russia to Greece to UK to Denmark. His godparents were Queen Victoria of the United Kingdom and the last Russian Tsar, Nicholas II. His pet name was Nicky, but given that there were too many Nickys in the family, especially the Tsar, it was changed to Dicky, which is strange, as he didn't have Richard as part of his long given name. Also, this will not be the last name change he will go through. As the Great War or World War I began, there was a strong resentment of anything German in the United Kingdom. King George of the United Kingdom changed the name of his house from Saxe-Coburg and Gotha to Windsor. Following suit, the Battenbergs changed their name to a more English-sounding Mountbatten, and that's when Louis Battenberg became Lord Louis Mountbatten. Mountbatten's tryst with names didn't end there. Having architected his nephew and mentee Prince Philip's marriage with the future Queen Elizabeth, when Elizabeth eventually ascended the throne in 1952, Mountbatten spared no attempt to ensure that his house name was cemented permanently with the ruling monarchy. He wanted Elizabeth Windsor to become Elizabeth Mountbatten. Of course, there was a very strong opposition to this, but then he fought for 8 years over a quiet battle and finally had a partial success. In 1960, the last name of the ruling royals became Mountbatten Windsor, the name that they use even today. Now we add our second ingredient, 2 tablespoons of media spice. Mountbatten served in both the world wars. In World War I, he started serving in the Royal Navy and started as a midshipman. He continued his naval career and rose to become the first Sea Lord and the Admiral of the fleet. It was his obsession to return to the Navy that he even hastened the Indian independence. Anyway, in World War II, in the year 1940, his ship HMS Kelly was sunk by the German bombers, and Mountbatten was one of the lucky and brave ones to escape by swimming in the ocean. Now, it would be a common thing if he was awarded a medal for this. But Mountbatten was not a commoner in any term. He engaged with his friend Noel Coward, the English playwright, immediately and had him made a movie titled In Which We Serve that walked through his HMS Kelly journey. Lord Mountbatten was a central character of the film and his real speeches were actually used. This film was fully backed by the Ministry of the Information and used for propaganda. But more importantly, The movie was also a commercial box office success in the US and UK and even won Oscar nominations for Best Picture and Best Screenplay. In the year 1947, Lord Mountbatten has the historic appointment as the last Viceroy of India and then became the first Governor General of Free India subsequently. After his term, the garish Mountbatten ensured that his legacy in India is captured properly by doing two things. One, he commissioned his son-in-law to produce the TV series The Life and Times of the Admiral of the Fleet Lord Mountbatten of Burma. He also acted as the main source for the iconic book Freedom at Midnight by Dominic Lapierre and Larry Collins. Mountbatten also became the first member of the royal family to appear on TV when he came on the show This Is Your Life. On to our third ingredient, 3 tablespoons of military and strategy spice, Mountbatten the international politician. Continuing his journey in World War II, after the sinking of HMS Kelly and after he's had time to make the movie, Mountbatten took a break at Pearl Harbor. He was worried at the lack of US Army readiness at Pearl and eerily and very correctly predicted that the Japanese could easily launch a surprise attack and would draw the United States into the war. His prediction came true in 90 days. However, most of his other military instincts were woefully wrong and were quashed all the time. In spite of that, Mountbatten grew ranks and ended as being the supreme elite commander of the Southeast Asian Command thanks to his closeness with the right people including Winston Churchill. During these times, Mountbatten is remembered for his funny attempts to impress the Soviet dictator Joseph Stalin by showing his closeness to the murdered Tsar family, and Stalin laughing and mocking at him publicly, stating, "Maybe you were here a long time back, my friend." Mountbatten also tried playing kingmaker and master strategist in many political situations. A potential coup against the British Prime Minister Harold Wilson in 1968, the Spanish succession of Juan Carlos in 1969, etc. We already mentioned that he architected the marriage of Prince Philip to future Queen Elizabeth. What is lesser known, that he also tried getting Prince Charles, the future king, to marry his granddaughter Amanda Knatchbull, something that she actually said no. On to our fourth ingredient, 4 tablespoons of multiple talent spice, Mountbatten, the master of many arts. It was no doubt that Mountbatten was a multi-talented personality. After the Indian independence, Mountbatten played a very critical role in the British royal family. He was the mentor to Philip, then the Prince of Wales, and then later to the current Prince of Wales, Prince Charles. He loved sports, especially polo, and received even a patent for a polo stick. Mountbatten authored a book on polo as well. For those of the kids who are in an IB curriculum in your schools, you should know that our man Lord Mountbatten played a very active role in helping launch the International Baccalaureate program and himself gave out the first diplomas in the year 1971. Stay back with me as we add our most important and fifth ingredient, 5 tablespoons of romance spice. Now, on to our most important and fifth ingredient that made Mountbatten who he was, the romance spice, Casanova Royale. How can we end a Masala episode of Mountbatten without discussing his romances? But alas, this is a kid-friendly show, so I will spare the details. Lord Mountbatten's first romance was his cousin, the Grand Duchess Maria Nikolavina, daughter of his mother's sister Tsarina Alexandra, and the last Tsar of Russia, Nicholas II. Loyal to his first love forever, Mountbatten kept her photograph on his bedside for the rest of his life. Mountbatten was married to Edwina for 31 years until her death, but the world knew that their hearts were elsewhere. Mountbatten took several other lovers, mostly very young women or others' wives. If you are interested in this sort of information, I recommend reading the recently released book, The Mountbattens, Their Lives and Loves by Andrew Lowney. returning to where we started today, Mountbatten was assassinated by the IRA in 1979. Even in death, he left the world in a dramatic way. There was no other way he could have gone. Like him or hate him, but you cannot deny that you admire how Lord Masala Mountbatten lived a full life and on his own terms. That's all for today, folks. Thanks for joining and listening to the story of Masala Mountbatten. I hope to see you soon with yet another episode of Masala History shortly. Until then, stay socially distanced. Take care. Bye-bye.